a Bitcoin standard is the goal,
Yeah.
right? The goal. But with it come few challenges. Like, how would debt work if we have a Bitcoin standard?
This is a really great question, and I've spent a lot of time thinking about this also. I think we're going to see some kind of a return back to maybe how things were in, let's say, the late 1800s in a gold standard. I think there'll be some elements of similarity to that. I think this phenomenon today, where it's very standard that people take out mortgages to buy homes, and it's just a very normalized thing that everybody just takes out debt. That's going to change, right? This idea that we're going to have, people have all this credit card debt, this mortgage debt, maybe even some business loans. I think a lot of that is a phenomenon of fiat currency and of fractional reserve banking. So the Austrians explain this by talking about the difference between commodity credit and circulation credit. So commodity credit refers to when there are people who've actually saved that money and they are foregoing or relinquishing their access to those funds, and those funds are being lent to somebody else. That's a commodity credit example. In a circulation credit example, so that's a different example where new funds are being created ex nihilo. New money is just being created in the act of that commercial bank giving a loan. That is circulation credit. And we are in a circulation credit environment today. So the way I'm seeing it is debt will be a lot less under Bitcoin standard because the purchasing power of the Bitcoin is going to be going up over time. We can think of it like this kind of passive growth deflationary benefit. And so in order to take out debt denominated in Bitcoin, you need to be really confident that you'll be able to make enough back and pay back that loan. So it might make sense. Let me give you a quick example just to sort of contextualize it. Let's say you are a business owner and you're thinking, okay, do I take out a loan to expand and buy a new factory, make more widgets or whatever, and I think I can get a 50% internal rate of return, and the cost of that debt is going to be 10%. Well, then obviously, yeah, okay, I think I can make this work. But I think this phenomenon today where it's seen as standard that everybody just gets a mortgage to buy a house, I think that is going to change. I think what's going to happen is houses won't be seen so much like an investment, and they will be seen more like a consumption good or like a lifestyle good. And because of that, the relative price of housing, I think, will drop compared to how much people have in their salary.
Well, housing is seen as an investment because it's a way to protect against devaluation and debasement of fiat currencies.
Exactly.
So you're saying that when there's an alternative to that debasement of fiat or a replacement, that your home as a saving mechanism gets replaced by Bitcoin.
Yes.
And then you see your home as a utility, as shelter. That elaborate on that.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. So let me explain it this way. We are currently operating in this world where, because the fiat currency is just continually devaluing every year, people, whether they understand that at a conceptual level or not, they have been pushed into this system. And it's a cultural thing. It's also a regulatory thing. It's that it's relatively easy to get house loan debt in most of the, let's say, the Western world at least. And so it's a very common thing that people will get out a loan to buy their home. And what that has created is this almost Ponzi-like creation where people use houses like investment. And we see this as well, that, I'm sure in the Canadian market, in Vancouver and stuff famously, and Hong Kong and other famous property market bubbles around the world, like Australia, where I
live in New York, so I can relate to that as well, yeah.
Yeah, so I think what's happened is people have stopped treating housing just as I need a place to live or a place to raise my family, and it's become, I'm going to do this as an investment. And everybody wants to become like a property mogul and have the rental income that takes off. And so it just kind of creates this weird dynamic where, let's say, younger generations are kind of locked out of the property market, and older generations, like let's say the boomers and maybe the older Gen X people, have had an opportunity to buy those properties when the multiple of their salary was a lot lower. Yeah. So I think so let's bring it back to what Bitcoin is going to do. I think Bitcoin is going to change the way people operate. So they will save with Bitcoin, and the price of housing won't be bid up to these stratospheric levels because there's just no no easy availability of the credit required to push it to those levels, and also because people don't need to use housing as their savings and investment. And here's the other thing: a lot of people don't think about all the hidden costs associated with housing. Right? They're not thinking about the inflation. They're not thinking about the maintenance costs. They're not thinking about renovation, property taxes, all these little costs that people don't really account for. And so maybe you could sort of make this make sense if you were, let's say, a high-level commercial investor or a high-level sort of investor who can sort of you're a sophisticated debt user, let's say. But for the average person, they are getting screwed over by this system, and sadly, they don't understand why.
Okay, but let's go back to this commodity credit and circulation credit. Do you see them coexisting, or does commodity credit and Bitcoin completely replace it? Do we still